Chapter 8. Shocking News. Bess and George jumped from the police car and sped down the street after the fleeing girl. Nancy stepped into the rear seat, and the driver took off after the Drews burglar. A block farther on, he dodged into an office building. One of the officers turned to Nancy. "You stay in the car and blow the horn if you see the man. We'll go into the building and investigate, okay?" Nancy nodded, though disappointed she could not continue the chase herself. The policeman disappeared inside, while Nancy kept an alert look on all the buildings. It occurred to her that the suspect might go to the roof, jump to the next building, and make his way to the street again unseen. That fellow wouldn't dare show himself here now, Nancy decided. I'll get out of the car so I can see better. She stepped to the sidewalk and stared upward. Several passers-by paused to look also. "Somebody up there?" a man asked Nancy. "I don't know, but the police are looking for a man who ran into that building." More people stopped until a good-sized crowd had focused their eyes on the rooftops. Nancy was sure that if the suspect were up there, someone would spot him. She decided to watch the jewelry and clothes shops on either side of the office building in case he should run out of one of them. The crowd of onlookers attracted the attention of Bess and George, who had searched in vain for the burglar's acquaintance. As they rushed up to see what had happened, Nancy caught a glimpse of the suspect. He was just emerging from a drugstore a little farther down the street. Instantly, Nancy said, "Bess, blow the car horn and keep blowing it until the police come back. Then follow me. George, come along." Taking deep breaths, the girls started after the man. Within seconds, there was a din on the street. The shrill siren of the police car kept wailing. People shouted and pointed toward Nancy and George, who were running at top speed down the street. The burglar looked back. Seeing the girls racing after him, he doubled his pace. Nancy and George ran faster, but the distance between them and the fugitive remained the same. "Look!" George panted. The suspect was pulling a wallet from a rear pants pocket. He brought both hands in front of him and evidently took something from the wallet. Then he returned it to the pocket. Within seconds, the wallet popped out and dropped to the sidewalk. The suspect apparently did not know he had lost it because he did not wait to retrieve the wallet. Nancy and George ran even faster. Nancy scooped up the wallet and yelled at the man, "Stop! You lost your wallet!" She was sure he had heard her, but paid no attention and sped on. "Nancy, it's no use," George called to her friend, who was a few paces ahead. "Don't give up now," Nancy replied. George, loyal to Nancy, ran faster. The girls tried their best to overtake the man. He suddenly cut across a parking lot filled with cars. Presently, he dodged behind a small truck, and they could not see where he went. Unfortunately, there was no fence around the place, merely a barrier about a foot high. "I'm afraid he's gone," Nancy said. Nevertheless, the two girls scurried in and out among the cars and looked beyond the barrier, but could not see their quarry anywhere. Finally, they gave up the chase and returned to the street. At the same time, Bess arrived with the police. Nancy told her story, and one of the men said, "That fellow sure acts as if he's guilty of some crime." Nancy handed the wallet to the officer, who said his name was Parker. All identification has been removed." Nancy was sorry to hear this. She had been hopeful of finding out who the suspect was. "There's nothing in here but a letter without an envelope," Parker remarked. He unfolded the sheet and stared at the writing. Nancy looked too. "Is that in Greek?" she asked. "Is it?" Parker asked his companion. When he said yes, Parker introduced him as Officer Paris of Greek descent. "Will you translate this for us?" Paris read it through silently, then said, "The handwriting is rather poor, but I think it says, 'I made an investigation here in Istanbul. Farouk Tahmasp is dead. It is signed, Sally.'" "Dead?" Bess shrieked. The two officers looked at her in amazement, and Parker asked, "You know this Farouk?" "No, not personally," Bess answered. "Nancy Drew here will tell you about it. Without revealing all the angles of the mystery, Nancy said, "He was a client of my father's before he disappeared. We've been trying to find out something about him." Officer Paris said, "I guess this note answers your question." Nancy did not contradict him, but a sudden suspicion had entered the young detective's mind. "May I see the note, please?" The officer handed it to her. She scrutinized the paper carefully, then held it up to the bright sunlight. She was not surprised to find that it had been manufactured in the United States. "See something?" George asked her. Nancy revealed what she had discovered and added, "I believe this letter is a fake. It was written to make the girl he was talking to think that Farouk is dead." George interposed, "But why would this guy write the letter in Greek of all things?" "Maybe he's Greek," Bess said simply. Nancy did not enter into the cousins' conversation. Instead, she gave a more detailed account of the whole episode to the police officers, including the fact that the girl, after reading the letter, had burst into tears. The man seemed to be trying to soothe her, but she kept repulsing him. Then when he saw me, he told her to run and not be caught. He went in the other direction. "The whole thing does look fishy," Parker admitted. Bess burst out, "What a terrible trick to play on anyone!" "Do you suppose," said George, "that the girl the burglar met is a relative of his, or possibly of Farouk Tahmasp?" "She could be," Parker answered. He asked Nancy for a description and said the police would look for her. Perhaps if she learns the note is a fake, she'll reveal the identity of the man who showed it to her. Paris added, "If we find out anything at all, we'll be in touch with you." The two men drove off. Nancy, Bess, and George returned to the convertible. "It's certainly been an exciting morning," Bess remarked. "When we saw you run out of that bakery, we rushed. The police arrived. We told them we were working with you, and they took us along." George observed, "Well, we got one new clue in the mystery. That suspect is connected in some way with Farouk. He must know Farouk sent the rug. I wonder if the burglar is a Turk or a Greek." "He could be a Greek who lived in Turkey," Nancy replied. "When I first saw him in our house, I thought he might be Turkish." A large clock in a jeweler's window told the girls that it was lunchtime. Bess suggested that they all go to her house. "I'll make one of those fluffy cheese soufflés," she said. Nancy smiled. "It sounds good, but an idea just came to me of how we might do a little more sleuthing." Bess groaned. "I vote for it if it includes food." George looked at her cousin in disgust. "You and your appetite. How about our going to a diet restaurant?" Nancy laughed. "Not today. I know of a wonderful restaurant in the section of town where most of the people speak Greek." George said she knew the one Nancy meant. "It has an odd name, a Kurzel Locanta. It's been there a long time, and the food's delicious." "Locanta is the Greek word for restaurant," Nancy added. "A Kurzel must be the owner's name. I thought we might have lunch there and possibly pick up some information." Bess was delighted with the idea until Nancy brought up a new subject. As they were driving toward the restaurant, she said, "It's just possible that burglar dropped the wallet on purpose to mislead us." "I agree," George said. "First, he removed all the contents except the letter, so he couldn't be identified." A worried expression came over Bess's face. "Nancy," she said, "if he'd do that, maybe even that little drama of the girl crying was part of the act." "You're probably right," her cousin said. Bess looked frightened. "Nancy, I don't think we should go to the Greek restaurant. Suppose that awful burglar decides to have lunch there too. Oh, Nancy, I have a feeling you'll be in real danger if you go there." End of chapter 8.